Have you ever heard a story that made you question everything you thought you knew about justice? A story with so many twists and turns it feels like it's straight out of a Hollywood movie, but it's terrifyingly real. This is the story of Ray Krone, a man whose life was shattered by a single, seemingly insignificant detail. Our story begins on a cold December morning in 1991, in Phoenix, Arizona. A 36-year-old bar manager named Kim Ancona is found brutally murdered in the men's restroom of the bar where she worked. The scene was horrific, and the police were under immense pressure to find her killer. As they canvassed the area, they learned that Kim was a regular at the nearby post office. One of the postal workers there was a man named Ray. Witnesses mentioned that Krone had been seen helping Kim close up the bar the night before her death. This immediately put him on the police's radar. Krone, a former Air Force sergeant with no criminal record, willingly cooperated. He gave them his fingerprints, his photograph, and even a styrofoam cup to provide a saliva sample. He had nothing to hide, or so he thought. The investigation zeroed in on one crucial piece of evidence, a bite mark found on the victim's shoulder. A forensic odontologist, a bite mark expert, was called in. He compared a dental mold made from Krone's teeth to the mark on the victim. His conclusion was damning. He declared it a perfect match. For the jury, this was the smoking gun. Despite Krone's persistent claims of innocence and a solid alibi that placed him at home at the time of the murder, the expert testimony was too convincing. In 1992, Ray Krone was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. From his cell on death row, Ray watched the world move on. He spent his days reading, exercising, and writing letters, always maintaining his innocence. His family and a dedicated team of lawyers fought tirelessly for him, filing appeal after appeal, but they were consistently denied. The bite mark evidence seemed insurmountable. The media had dubbed him the Snaggletooth Killer because of his slightly crooked teeth, a cruel nickname that sealed his public image as a monster. For 10 long years, Ray Krone lived under the shadow of execution, a fate he did not deserve. Every day was a battle against despair, clinging to a sliver of hope that the truth would one day emerge. Then, in the late 1990s, a new technology began to gain traction in the legal world: DNA testing. It was a long shot, but Krone's legal team saw it as their last hope. They filed a motion to have the biological evidence from the crime scene saliva and blood retested using modern DNA analysis. For years, the prosecution fought against it. But finally, in 2002, a judge granted the request. Scientists tested the saliva found on the victim's shirt and the blood left at the scene. And here's the first major twist. The DNA did not match Ray Krone, not even close. It was a complete and total exclusion. After a decade on death row, the scientific evidence proved what Ray had been screaming all along. He was innocent. The so-called perfect match from the bite mark expert was, in fact, perfectly wrong. In April 2002, Ray Krone walked out of prison a free man, the 100th death row inmate in the United States to be exonerated by DNA evidence. But the story doesn't end there. If Ray didn't do it, who did? The DNA profile that had cleared Ray's name was entered into the National Criminal Database, and soon, they got a hit. The DNA belonged to a man named Kenneth Phillips, and this is where the story takes its most chilling turn. Who was Kenneth Phillips? He was a local man who had been a regular at the bar where Kim worked. But more shockingly, at the time of Ray Krone's original trial, Phillips was already in prison for an unrelated violent crime. He had even lived just a few blocks away from the crime scene. The police had his information. They had his DNA profile on file long before Krone was even released. Yet, for years, the true killer was sitting in a prison cell for another crime. While an innocent man sat on death row for his, Phillips was a known violent offender, yet the initial investigation had completely overlooked him, fixated instead on the man with the snaggletooth. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a catastrophic failure of the system. Kenneth Phillips was eventually charged with and convicted of Kim Ancona's murder, based on the same DNA that freed Ray Krone. He was already serving a long sentence, and he died in prison a few years later. The case was finally, officially, closed. Ray Krone's story is a harrowing cautionary tale. It shows how easily a life can be destroyed by flawed forensic science and a rush to judgment. The expert who testified about the bite mark was later found to have made similar errors in other cases. Bite mark analysis itself has since been largely discredited as a reliable forensic tool, often being compared to reading tea leaves. Ray dedicated his life after prison to advocating against the death penalty and speaking out about wrongful convictions. He found a new purpose in sharing his story, ensuring that no one would forget the 10 years he lost. He even fell in love and got married, finding a measure of peace after an unimaginable ordeal. His journey is a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit, but it's also a stark reminder that the pursuit of justice is often a flawed and fragile process, and that the truth, sometimes, takes far too long to come to light. Thank you so much for joining me for this incredible story. If you found this case as compelling as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into fascinating cases. We'd love to have you as part of our community. See you in the next video.